we are going to be unpacking how you can go about doing cold outreach the right way. There's really a difference between doing bulk messaging and one-to-one emails with a targeted audience. And under, the Can Spam Act, you can send emails to business people that don't know who you are, and it might be considered, that you're misrepresenting yourself, or that you're kind of spamming them, and just making sure that you're doing things in the right way and that you're able to get the end objective of actually having a conversation with a qualified prospect. If you haven't had a chance to grab the workbook yet, please comment below, cold outreach, and we'll make sure to get the workbook to you. So the thing that we tend to see quite often is that one of the issues for agencies is that you're sending communication to the wrong people. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter if you've got a great message and the person that you're messaging isn't going to benefit from what it is that you offer. You're going to be ignored and even potentially get marked as spam. And, potentially they don't really know who you are. And an email from a complete stranger that doesn't really have context, your email will definitely be deleted without a second thought, and ultimately potentially reaching out to and asking for the wrong thing. You're asking too much of a stranger that really will never work, because they don't know who you are, and you're getting too deep too fast, and you're creating essentially friction. And busy people, which are a lot of business owners and a lot of people within the business space, and you're competing against their current to-do list, and how can you do it and making sure that it's frictionless and going to ultimately get them to take the action that you're looking for. So what we want to accomplish in this training is that you're always going to be sending the messages to the right person. Know that every message is going to go and get to someone who is going to want to read it and is going to engage with it, and ultimately that they're familiar with you, that they'll recognize your name or your agency name, or that there's some type of context or connection, and that they're going to want to open and read your message. And that ultimately you're asking for the right action. You're making it compelling, you're removing friction, and making it so that they actually want to engage with you. And so before we get into tactics, I want to cover essentially 3 rules, and that I want you to keep top of mind when you're creating your cold outreach campaign. The first rule, and potentially the most important, is that you need to really care about the other person. A lot of agencies do not really spend enough time thinking about how to qualify their prospects and qualify people, and making sure that you're communicating with the right person. So taking a couple minutes to familiarize yourself with that person, and that who you're going to be contacting in whatever channel it is, via email, via LinkedIn, and that you're going to be able to stand out from the crowd. And if you are a person that has an online presence, you want to make sure that that you're able to actually communicate with them in multiple different channels, be it social media, be it LinkedIn, be it email, and that they have, and then you can potentially even look into who they are a little bit, from recent blog posts to social media posts, things like that. And ultimately recognize that you are speaking to a human. So if you don't lead with value and outcomes, ultimately speaking, they're not going to care. So make sure that you are writing your copy that is going to actually have them resonate and understand who you are, what they're going to benefit, and what value you're going to be able to provide to them. And then the last thing is get to the point. Long messages a lot of times don't get read because they look at it and they immediately think, I don't have time for this. And, so you can, and I'm not saying that long form email copy doesn't work, because it does, but once you have built a relationship with someone, and you have to make sure that you understand when to actually utilize it. And that's typically speaking better utilized in a more nurturing type sequence over a longer period of time, that you've already built an engagement with that person. So now let's dig deeper into improving your odds of getting a successful response from them. So the first thing is I want you to think about cluster sources. So I want you to think about cluster sources in that there's a number of different sources that provide sort of relevant information, right? So think, Facebook communities, Reddit communities, LinkedIn groups, things like that. that allow for you to be able to understand your targets. And there's things that you can be doing with those groups and not necessarily posting. And if you are going to post in groups that are private groups, make sure that you have the approval from the admins or the people that are managing that group. But if not, you also have the ability to actually engage with people and send messages to them saying, hey, I know that we are in the same group, that we were both talking about XYZ comment, and that maybe you're even sending messages and value-oriented messages to the questions that are being asked within the group, rather than just directly cold outreaching to them that isn't value-oriented. And then number 2 is that we want to prioritize your list and essentially cut it down. So make sure that we are reaching out to the people that we really, realistically speaking, feel most comfortable with reaching out to first. So let's look at who they are. Maybe it could be someone that you already know. It could have been someone that was a previous colleague. It could have been someone that you worked in the same department. It could be a friend. It could be a family member. But reaching out to people that you have as a higher targeted, have more of a relationship with to start off with. And if you don't, then make sure that you're familiarizing yourself with them and understand how you can best serve them. Again, remember, being and thinking human first and caring about them. The next thing I would say that gets missed so incredibly often is, research yourself a little bit. It's kind of an odd thing to be suggesting, but I want you to actually take a moment and immediately after this training and go Google yourself. Google your agency. Is it clear in the content that's being put out there of what you do, who you are? Does your messaging align with your goals and the outreach that you're sending out and the values that you provide to your prospects? Consider making edits to your social media profiles, to your LinkedIn pages. One of the things that I see so incredibly frequently is like, I am CEO of this company or this agency. And quite frankly, nobody cares. So you actually need to be talking about them and making sure that your website descriptions, your social media descriptions, all of those things actually directly orient you to who it is that you are serving and working with. If your outreach says that you specialize and that in web design for a law firm, but it's not mentioned anywhere on your website or your social media, you quite frankly immediately lose credibility because they are going to look you up. We are in the digital age. And every single person is going to research you. Period. End of story. They're going to. And they should be. And making sure that they can trust you and feel safe with you. That is ultimately the thing that every single human being on the planet wants, is to feel safe and secure. And that includes working with agencies, that includes working with any type of vendor. Ultimately, humans in every piece of their lives want to feel safe and secure. So how do you go about doing that? Is making sure that you are able to show them that they are safe because you are an expert in that particular area. And so now let's talk about the differentiation between full cold outreach versus warm outreach. And there's lots of things that you can be doing in the immediate that allows for you, before even reaching out to someone via email, to actually start to build a relationship with them. And it makes the communication with them, quite frankly, quite a bit less awkward. So, for example, you could, let's say that you're doing a LinkedIn outreach strategy. You could be commenting on the posts that they're making. You could be mentioning them in posts that you found relevant to them. You could be commenting on their social media comments, things like that allow for you to have some name recognition, for them to know who you are. And then by the time you're actually sending them a message, they recognize you. It makes it less awkward for them, makes it less awkward for you, as you've started to build some aspect of a rapport. And ultimately speaking, make sure that you're being genuine and then you're actually providing value in those types of comments that you're making as well. So number 5 is, let's actually take your chance and actually make the message and send the message out. This piece would seem rather obvious, but isn't done a lot. In the busy world that is the agency world, you very frequently will spend lots of time on client work, but not enough time in business development and lead generation, because you're going from client to client. And by the time, what you recognize and what happens so incredibly frequently is that when you actually look to do business development is when you realize you've lost a big client and you need to get them in, and you're positioning from a place of famine and you are desperate and you need that business quickly. And you need to be doing your messaging and outreach and lead generation before that need comes up so that you're not in that place and you're not positioning and feeling desperation. Because if you're feeling desperation, as I joke all the time, dogs can smell fear and prospects can smell your desperation. So you want to make sure that you're not in that place. So let's go ahead and take the shot. The most effective cold outreach are ones that are written in plain language. I kind of painstakingly learned this lesson, and trying to be creative and crafty and writing copy that I thought was creative and unique. And quite frankly, the more unique and creative I got, the less effective copy became. So you want to make sure that you're being very, you're speaking in very plain language and it's very clear, and that they understand very early on what it is exactly that you do, who you are, and that you actually care about them. Your cold message in a friendly way should include things like, what is this exactly that you do? And what are you requesting of them? What is the action that you're asking for them to take? And why you and why them? This is actually super important. Why are you reaching out to them? Of all people in the world, what is the reason that you are wanting to talk to them? It's really important that they understand your why and why them. And make sure that it's being done in such a way that has them even being intrigued. And what I see happen so incredibly frequently is that, as I mentioned, and as I was telling you at the very beginning, that you need to be thinking and positioning all of the comments that I'm making through the lens of the first 3 rules and making sure that you're caring about them. Don't make it all about you and about sales. Make it about them and understanding them and who they are and what they're doing and why they're doing it, and asking questions about them. People love to talk about themselves. You included. Me as well. And the more time that you actually have and take an interest in them and care about them and recognize the human on the other side of that email or that message, you're going to have a more effective outreach campaign. So the cold outreach sort of strategy that we're talking about here feels quite bespoke. And, how do you actually do it at scale? And quite frankly, this probably sounds like quite a bit of work. But the good news is that there's still really, that you can do this at scale. And it doesn't have to be you. You can have personalized messages that can be done quite quickly, where you have sort of canned messages that are able to be personalized. And quite frankly, if you are a niched agency and your offer is very targeted and your niche is very targeted, you don't really have to change your message a ton. It's more just, their name, their company, them, why them, or how you got their contact information. So let's, think about things in the sort of descriptor that I was mentioning earlier. Let's talk like, you're a web design firm for law firms, and you have niched down to them, and that you're able to actually speak to that direct partner and make sure that you're able to actually have the message craft. So you're going to just be able to change out their name, change out the law firm name, and change out the medium by which you're actually reaching out or how you actually found them. And like I mentioned before, you want to be forthcoming about your request and give necessary contact information, how they're going to reach out or what it is exactly that you're looking for them to do. And if it's the right person and it's the right time for them and it's going to provide them with value, you're going to get a response. And the thing that I want to leave you with here is that so incredibly often when it comes to outreach and lead generation and business development, when you get a no or you get ignored, we tend to make it about ourselves. People don't care, people don't like us, people don't want to work with us. There's something wrong with us. It really has nothing to do with you. Nothing. It has to do with them. They're too busy. They weren't in the right mind space. They don't have a need. And it's not about you. So you need to not look at rejection and being told no as something that is wrong with you. It means that it wasn't the right fit for them at the right time, and that's okay. And you need to recognize that every single no is you getting closer to a yes. If you have any questions, and I mean any questions at all, please do me a favor and either comment with your questions below this video or shoot us a message, a DM message, and ask any questions that you have. We are absolutely here to support and provide you with any guidance that you need so that you can be able to scale up your agency and get a greater amount of leads. Thanks so much for watching the training this week, and I will see you guys all next week.